Okay, guys, welcome to Unit 5, our last unit. It's the forgotten unit in IB business because it usually comes last, and it is about a topic that is not that exciting. However, without it, there is no business. I know I always said before that marketing was the most important. In terms of, like, without the sale, there is no revenue. But it can't stand on its own because without operations, without actually making the product or providing the service, you can't do the sale. So while none of this is terribly glamorous, operations work and operations management and determining, inventory levels and how we're going to build things in terms of, is it going to be a one-off, a batch, or a process, or is it going to be a line operation where we just do a mass assembly line? Where are we going to locate our factories? All these things are, play into operations. So, think of sales as like the actual upstairs fancy penthouse of a building, where this operations is the foundation, the structure that keeps it all going, with finance and human resources providing the support on the insides. All right, that's my analogy. All right, so 5.1 is just understanding what the role of operations management is. So what operations refer to is how we're going to build and deliver the product to the consumer or the other business. I guess a better word than consumer is our customer. So the management of everything from the design to the supply chain to the manufacturer to, even assuring that the customer experience was a positive one are all part of operations. All right. Thinking about it from a more of a industrial revolution standpoint, which really started this whole concept of operations, where we built things in different ways, so we could build more of them at one time, gaining those economies of scale. We kind of think of the modern assembly line, even though the modern assembly line is kind of like the 1910s, 1920s. We move on that to, something as massive and large as this new concept, the Tesla Gigafactory, which, I think there's a comparison down here. I'm not sure what language this is in. Oh, it's in Polish. All right, you can look at the massive tower that I think you've probably seen photos of in some way or another in Dubai. There's a trade center in New York, and there's the size of a gigafactory, and they're building 3, 4, 5 of these for production. And it goes beyond just our factories for building mass marketed products, but there's restaurants. So here's a restaurant kitchen. That's a whole operation in and of itself. Everyone's unique. You're producing one-off products, but you're doing it in a way that gets the food to people in a timely, organized, and well-prepared fashion. In terms of pure services, one of the first companies to achieve that in the food industry was McDonald's. They really pioneered the quality control, where every burger was going to be like every other burger. And they did that with, almost an assembly line approach to food preparation. Really, the big contribution to the business world was that process. And when Ray Kroc bought McDonald's, that's what he was buying, more than just the name and the food and the types of marketing and the types of people they were targeting. He really bought that operation. All right, so primary sector. Let's go right back to Unit 1 here. It's mining, harvesting. Really, you think of more operations management in the secondary sector, which is manufacturing. So, if we can kind of keep that as our focus, and then also consider what goes on in the tertiary sector, which is our services, and then we'll tie some quaternary, which is business information, our basically our information sector in as well. But it's easiest to kind of think of this whole concept and relate to it in the secondary sector. There's this beautiful diagram here, slightly sarcastic. I mean, some of these diagrams and some of these simple models appear to be oversimplistic, but it's a good way to think of how things flow and a good way to remember what we're actually trying to learn here. So basically, the whole operations process is transforming those raw materials, whether it be a good or a service, into a finished product. Yeah, I mean, we're going to relate operations to other business functions. When I like this statement up here at the top. Let me zoom in on that a little bit. So operations deliver the what question of an organization's objectives. So like, what are we actually doing? Operations is the what. There can be why and how and when, but operations are the what in terms of what's happening in an organization. Also, too, I think it's important that operations are largely done by people. So it's a people-intensive process, whether it's the people building the automated manufacturing, or whether it's people actually doing the manufacturing and performing the service, everything from haircuts up to manufacturing jet aircraft. People are heavily involved in this process. And I think the other thing is that it needs depending on the operation. You look at an operation like Tesla and you follow that from the early days of the company up to present day, and you got to remember that in the last year, Tesla and their stock valuation has taken Elon Musk, such as he is, to the third richest person in the world based on his ownership of Tesla shares. And a large part of that is their gains and the perfection. I shouldn't say perfection because there's no such thing, but the gains they've made in their manufacturing, in their operations. So being able to manufacture batteries at a higher rate and cheaper than anyone else, their ability to design, manufacture, and deliver automobiles has built that particular business of his into an absolute juggernaut in the automotive industry, from really a very small and insignificant company, and all their challenges were operational challenges. So everything that company has achieved in its share price and its valuation is really on the back of perfecting their operations. And that costs money, and that's why they were in such a precarious situation for such a long time, because of all the funding that needed to go into building things like these gigafactories in order so they could start gaining these economies of scale and providing the profit margins that economies of scale create, because you can get that unit price lower. So we goes on here about the operations manager. Yes, achieving those economies of scale are critical, probably maybe the most important. It says operations manager can suggest which forms of non-financial rewards may be suitable for an organization, because they're actually on the floor. They're actually working with the workers and with the people that are building these products. I think also too is that your operations people really are the ones that are responsible first and foremost for cost control in the manufacturing process. I know in my experience in finance, we spent a lot of time on the factory floor with operations people. For General Electric lighting, we made lamps and light bulbs, by the billions. And if there was going to be a new incentive or a new factory process that we had to figure out what the costs were going to be, it was the operations people that were going to provide us with that data. Okay, so just as a kind of a summary here, range of goods and services. As we get as we go from goods all the way to pure services, there's always a mix of tangible and intangible in this spectrum here. So on this continuum, it will change how we structure the operations depending on what product we're actually offering. So things like goods, we think of those as mass produced. Says here, consumer gets the product, there will mostly be after sales service, but we're actually providing them with a tangible project. Here they give you an example of cosmetic surgery. Yeah, there's a physical service there from the physician. Obviously that physical service is probably first and foremost, but there is a physical product that's being used in that as well. Airline travel becomes more of a pure service. Sure, you get. I mean, I guess what they're saying here too is that the meal you have potentially on the airplane, if you choose to get one, is more of a tangible thing, but the actual travel itself is a service that is consumed on the spot. And then finally, if you're going to a music concert, and they say less the merch at the music concert, the just enjoyment of the music is a pure service. So how is that put together, produced, and distributed to fans and listeners? Going down, I'm going to skip down here to this diagram and then wrap it up. So what IB is emphasizing is that there's more than just a bottom line, meaning profit, that it needs to consider three bottom lines in today's operational management if your operation management has a forward-looking or more modern approach to business. Economic sustainability, ecological sustainability, and social sustainability. And this word sustainability, while it gets thrown around quite a bit, it is really important because without sustainability, your business ends. And there's three factors that can affect that. So, being able to survive economically, that's more of your raw profit, your financial needs, your cash flow. What's your social sustainability? Can the people that are working for you or the people that are building your products, is that a situation that can be sustained year after year, or is it going to get to a situation where workers that are being exploited or not cared for, refuse to work? Ecological sustainability, if we don't have a world to live in, then we don't have products to build. I think about some of the property and land down in Florida, some people I know that live down there. They live in Key West. Key West is this little string of islands that goes off the tip of Florida. Well, their streets and roads are flooding on almost every high tide right now. And super high tides are creating complete flooding. They're at a point where they're not going to be able to perform any of their business functions if you're living in water. So thinking about long-term ecological sustainability, and not just for things like climate change, but even your local sustainability ecologically, your forests, your streams, your lakes, all those things are critical to continuation of your business. Remember, I lived in a city, Cleveland, Ohio, where the river was so polluted that it burned for 2 weeks. That's not ecological sustainability. So businesses, hopefully, will think about this triple bottom line, just not the profits of the business. Okay, guys, that is it for the role of operations. I hope I've impressed upon you of how important this is, even though it's sometimes the forgotten important function, the forgotten function. And as we move forward here, we'll be dealing with, strategies of production. We'll be talking about, things like inventory management, and also dealing with problems, crisis and contingency management. So that is Unit 5 for us. So please take a look at that knowledge quiz, and good luck with that. And have a really, really nice rest of your day. It's been so nice being here. Bye-bye.